Welcome back, everybody, to another Observability Expert Insight series. I'm your host, Christopher Bonanno, and we're back again with our expert speaker, Calvin Miller, who is our local SME for dashboarding and reporting. This is session 2, where we're going to go a lot more into the advanced features of the custom dashboards, as well as spend some time in Dash Studio, and we'll actually get into the reporting part of this title. The last one, we wanted to really make sure that you guys understood the important parts and concepts dealing with dashboarding and using the primary function of the custom dashboard within Splunk AppDynamics. And then we're also joined here with our friend and colleague, Bill Harper, who's going to be fielding the questions that you guys have along the way. Feel free to drop them into the chat or into the Q&A, and we'll try to do our best to make sure we get that answered. And then, as Calvin will go over in the agenda, we will leave us a moment for Q&A towards the end. And also, as always, all of these recordings of the Expert Insight series will be posted up on our YouTube page. We'll provide that link in the chat. Thanks again for joining, and let's go ahead and kick off. Ready when you are, Calvin.
Thanks, Chris. We're going to start off by looking at the agenda. And we're going to cover the advanced custom dashboard features. And in this session, we're going to spend most of the time inside of the controller actually looking at these features and how they are implemented inside of the dashboard. And then we're going to go into Dash Studio and look at how to create Dash Studio dashboards and different features within Dash Studio. And of course, after that, we'll do the reports and the Q&A. So let's get started looking at the advanced custom dashboarding. So now I'm just going to go over into the controller. And right now we're at the main dashboards page for the classic dashboarding. You see different features in here where you can import dashboards. We'll talk about that later on. But you can click on this one so you can only see your dashboard. Sometime in big companies, everybody creating dashboards and you want to just see your own personal dashboards. So you can click on this feature and click on this and only see your dashboard. The dashboard we're going to use today for this demo is called EIS demo. So I'm going to double click to go into it. And I'm going to go ahead and put this one over in edit mode so we can start looking at some of the features across the top. You'll notice up on the options, you have auto save, auto refresh, but you also have show grid. So when I clicked on show grid, you notice that a grid came behind the dashboard so you can see whether things are lined up using the grid, but you also can use snap to grid. This allows you to snap items to the grid when you move them. So these are two items that you can use to just make sure everything is aligned. I really don't hardly ever use these. I'd rather use the alignment tool where you can just double click multiple items, click on one, hold shift down, click on the next one, click on the next one, and then right click and you can hit align and you can just align the top. I'm sorry that I had more items selected than I expected. So I'm gonna hit Control Z and go back to the normal, the way it was before. And let's try that again. So I'm gonna click on one, click on the next one, click on the next one. And now I'm gonna right click and click the line and align top. And you notice that it aligned the top of those boxes. Or you could click a line up here and you also have where you can align the features. You can put the features in different orders. So if something covering one of your widgets and you want to bring it up to the front, you can use the order to bring it up to front, or you can duplicate. So I have these three selected. If I wanted to, I could hit duplicate and it duplicates those three boxes. So I'm just going to highlight them, highlight these three again, and I'm going to delete just so I can remove those that I just created. Actually, I'm going to Control Z and let's try that again and delete. And now we're back where we started. So those alignment things and adjustments you can make just to make sure your dashboard is kind of spaced out in categories and everything look uniform, just to give you a prettier dashboard. The next thing we're going to look at is going into the actual time series metrics graphs and just adding items into it to make it more advanced, to add more items to it so you'll be able to monitor your application using the dashboard better by being able to tell whether something is out of range or something is an anomaly by going into the actual metric. And we can go into advanced and we can add items in here such as default baseline. And you can also add your standard deviations, and you can go here and you can click whether you want it above or below, or if you want to show both. We're just going to leave it at above, and we're going to, these two are already selected. We're going to go ahead and select 3, 4. And now when I hit save, you notice that the deviations show up in the metric, so you can actually tell when something is out of the norm, and you also see the actual baseline going through the metrics. So I'm gonna hit save on this. Actually, I'm gonna go back in it because there's something else I want to add to it. Not only can you add this into these baseline and standard deviations, you can add events into the graph. So if I was to click on show events, and now I can add any event into the metric, and you see these red lines down at the bottom that shows when an event is happening. So you don't have to go into your event viewer. You can actually see the events when they happen within the metric itself. So I'm gonna save this, and I'm going to go over to this one since this one is starting to get a little junky, I would say, with all the stuff we added. Let's look at this one and let's do some changing of the naming. So if we look at this one, the name is pretty long. Maybe we had a lot of names and we just want to shorten that name or just make it look a little simpler. We can go into the metric that's added, and we can go into advanced. We could scroll down to custom name. We'll change it to custom name. Usually it comes up, it's auto generated name, but we're gonna change it to custom name. And we're just gonna do the entity. You see the variables you can use here in this right above the field. So we're gonna use the $ curly bracket E curly bracket and hit save, and you notice it's showing the name up just to the entity. And instead of having one columns, let's change the legend columns to 2 just to make it smaller. So let's go down here to legend, scroll down, change it over to 2, and now you see that they went from 1 column to 2, which looked neater than the 1 column. Hit save, and now this one look better. Just for me, I'm just going to turn this event off just to make it look better and hit save here. So now you've been able to add items into your graph so you'll be able to tell when there's something going wrong. Just to make it easier to read, let's add the baseline into this one so you can kind of tell better. The other graphs kind of look real junky, so I'm going to do it over here just so you can understand how the baseline looks within the graph. And now within this graph, you could see with this line whether something is abnormal or not. Another thing you can do is you can change the colors of your lines. If you go into your metric and up under, let me see, up under advanced, you can change auto color. You can change here by adding different colors. If I want to make it orange, that color, and then the next one I want to make green, that color, and hit save, and you notice that the colors change. You can also, if I go back into advanced, change the different types. If you don't want line, you may want to use area. You can hit save, and now you'll see that we have an area graph instead of just a line graph. You also can make that change here from area to line to column. So there's different ways you can change your view around within the settings and also within the main page of the title. So another thing you can do as far as cosmetics, you can change the color of the actual graph itself. So just say if I wanted to make this a dark color, I can hit black here and you see how it shades down. Or I can just hit another black and it can make the whole graph black and as far as the entire thing. And I also have to go down here and change the background color from transparent to black. And now you see that the whole graph is black. Other items you can do, I'm gonna change this back to white. just so we can see the outlines. Let's go here. I must have it turned on already. Static threshold. Let me see. So right here, you see how you can hide the values in the graph. So if you don't want the values to show around the graph, you just using this graph for a trend view, you can actually turn these numbers out off from around the graph by just hitting the axis values. You can do a logarithmic view. Maybe you have one metrics that shows really high and the other one really low. You want to be able to actually see that low number. The logarithmic view allow you to have that type of view. You can also manually set the vertical minimum and maximum of your graph. So right now, when you first set it up, it's set up to auto. But just say if you was doing something that you was looking at percentages, you can use it to set up so your graph don't auto is always at 100% as the top value. So these are just some of the items you can do as far as cosmetics on your graphing, on your time series metrics. Another thing I like to talk about is when you're doing your dashboard and you're looking at cosmetics, you may want to add in a image. Right here, we added in the AppDynamics image. And what we did was we used a PNG file and we went to this website right here and we're able to drag that PNG file over on this website, which creates an image URL. And we can copy that image URL and place it into here and it shows the image and save it. And now we can have an image within our dashboard. You know, we kind of use this when we start wanting to mimic our regular website. So you can kind of bring in pictures from your regular website onto your dashboards or your logo, just to give it that cosmetic look to try to give it mimic and give it that professional look of your actual website. Another thing I like to discuss is custom metrics that you can create using custom expressions. So if you're looking at the success rate here, the success rate is not captured out of the box from AppDynamics. What we did was we used two metrics, the errors per minute and the calls per minute metrics to create this metric. So if you look here, I went into that widget and now we're going to just look at how I created it. So you pick out what you want to create the metric on, which is we're doing business transactions. I chose a business transactions. And then from single metric, I clicked on metric expression. And now if I click edit expression, I can go in and I can add different metrics out of the box metrics into a variable. And from these variables, I can down here create an expression to come up with the success rate. So you can see really divided the errors per minute by the calls per minute, subtracted by 100, well, multiplied it by 100, and then subtracted it by 100 to come up with the success rate. So anytime you're looking at, you have the information, like you want to create maybe something like an error SLO rate or something, you can use these numbers to create those expressions within your dashboard. I'm gonna cancel out of here. So sometimes when you create a metric, you do not know the exact path to get to bring it up within your dashboard. You can go into your metric browser and you can right click on that metric and do a copy full metric path. And now we can go into this widget here and go into the actual setup of the one I have reporting. And you notice that down here I have specified a relative metric path. So now I can paste it from the metric browser over into the actual widget for the metric selection, and it will bring this data in. So, and most of the time you have to remove like the first couple of segments in the metric path just because it states the actual application name and tier name in the setup of the metric, so you don't have to include that in the actual metric path. So you remove those couple of segments, hit select metric and save, and now you will see that information reporting into the metric. This is a workaround in case you cannot find the actual metric you're looking for when you go straight into the metric widget and looking around for a certain metric that does not show up. Another thing is you can add frames in. So if you hit add widgets, you can go into other widgets and you can add frames along with your image that we discussed earlier, and you can do labeling within this part of the dashboard. Frames allow you to bring in different URLs from and show them on your on your dashboard. So for instance, this dashboard down here at the bottom, I brought in a frame that shows AccuWeather. I just brought it in just to show you how it works. So now I can see that the weather on my dashboard in Charlotte is 74 degrees right now. So, if you want to bring in something from a different tool or something into one of your dashboards, you can use frames to bring that information in. That way you have that information on one dashboard. For advanced views, a big thing is analytics, ADQL, because you can do so much stuff with ADQL metrics and bringing them into dashboards. So if I'm looking at this dashboard and I'm looking at this loan types, this is a business IQ search. So if I was to click on it, you'll see that it's an analytic ADQL query that's bringing in this information. But let's look at the different widgets that you can bring in within analytics using these ADQL searches. This one right here, I'm using the time map, but I can also make it into a table. I can make it into a pie chart or columns. So it's different widgets you can use with analytics other than the widgets that's just shown within the actual dashboard itself. So once you bring it in, you could I could hit save here and it'll come back as a column, but I'm gonna put it back as time maps. And you'll notice that we have these down here. Depending on your ADQL search, it depends on which widgets you are allowed to put into a dashboard. So I'm gonna just hit cancel on this one to get us back to the regular dashboard. Another item I like is the experience level. So if I go into analytics and I click on experience level, these are items that you can create within AppD. And from here, you can actually save these experience levels to the dashboard. And you can see you can do experience levels from a weekly level to a monthly level. But this is good information to have on your dashboard because it's a quick view to actually be able to tell the comparison of last week execution performance to this week's performance. And all you have to do to add these to a dashboard is click on it and add to dashboard. And you can either create a new dashboard or you can add to existing dashboard. I'm going to just exit out of this and I'm going to go back to my main dashboard that was working on. And we're going to look at other items that's in here. So let's look at the business journal, the business funnel, conversion funnel. So here we can go into analytics. Let me go back to it. Sorry. We actually can edit this dashboard. Let's edit this conversion funnel. And you'll see that from here, you add steps and it's able to show you what's coming in and how it's been abandoned throughout the process of going through the steps of the execution, who completed the full process within this funnel. And if I click on add widgets and click analytics, and you'll see right here the funnel analysis that you can add in. So you also can go into add widgets and you can create custom widgets using the X and Y axis. So if I wanted to create here and I want to just drag one to business transactions, I'm going to drag business transactions at X axis. And now I could save this over into the dashboard, this table, just by hitting save. I'm not going to do it. Let's see what else in the analytics, because analytics, it's a good way. I keep hitting analytics. I meant the add widget and then analytics. A good way to add and slice and dice a lot of information, especially business information, into it. This way, It's the basic way of adding it, but you also can click on advanced and you can actually write your ADQL query like I showed you before and put it and allow it to go on the dashboard. And here's those same chart types that you can add into the dashboard. So let's scroll down and see what else we have here. We have business journeys that you can add into dashboards. That's another analytics tools that allow you to see the business journey, how everything operating throughout the path of the transaction. You have your BT user experience, so you can see how you can add tables into dashboards. It's just a slew of things that you can add into a dashboard to make them look better and to give you the information to tell the story that you're trying to tell at an advanced level. So let's look at some of the advanced controls. When I was talking earlier about doing alignments, other ways you can do select items. You can hold down your shift button and drag and select different items. So if you see how they can get selected when I drag across them, so you can do it that way, and then you can do your alignment. You can also, as I mentioned before, hold down your shift key and choose multiple items, and you can duplicate and make different copies. So there's different advanced keys and shortcuts that you can use to make your dashboard easier to create and be able to create them faster. Another thing, once you finish your dashboard and you have everything in place and you say, well, I need the rest of my team to use this dashboard, I can go up here and I can share my dashboard by just clicking on share. And when you share your dashboard, you also you're able to copy the URL to send to users so they can just have a URL that allows them to go in and view your dashboard. You don't need actual AppDynamics access to be able to view. You just need the URL. So somebody, if there's an issue and you need someone to look at your dashboard, they're able to you're able to share that URL and they're able to be able to view your dashboard at that time. The next thing is when you finish this dashboard, hopefully it's in a process, it's in a state where you can like rinse and repeat. So you can import, export. Maybe you first created your dashboard in a lower environment and now you completed your dashboard and you want to put it in production, you can export it and then import it into your production controller. So you always want to think about how you can use your dashboard for multiple applications. That way, hopefully you don't have to continue to build multiple dashboards, but you can actually use some of the dashboards as templates. So I'm going to go back over into my presentation now. This is just one slide where we talked about earlier where you can do different shortcuts as far as copying widgets, pasting widgets, moving widgets, just dragging with the mouse, dragging them. You can also move widgets after you click them. Instead of dragging them with the mouse, you can use your arrow keys to move them in directions. So these are just shortcuts on how to use your mouse and your keyboard to move and align widgets. So I always like to place emphasis on linking dashboards because when you link dashboards, that's the way you tell your full story. For instance, if you're looking at this diagram here, you have a business overview dashboard that's top level. You have an application performance overview and an infrastructure. But you notice that some of the dashboards, lower dashboards, downstream dashboards are shared by those top tier dashboards. So you want to make sure that you don't create multiple dashboards that's telling the same thing. If you can use dashboards to drill down, a business overview may need to see the same information as the application performance overview, that they can share those dashboards in the drill down. That'll save time and it also save confusion because you know everybody's looking at the same thing. Like we said, session number one, you want to start at a high level dashboard and then drill your way down to the application dashboard, then maybe an operation dashboard and service dashboard. You want to be able to tell that story. You want to be able to have your users understand that if they see a green light, they can double click on that green light and go to the next dashboard, all the way down to maybe even a built-in dashboard within AppD so it can tell the story and it can get to the root cause of their issue. The main focus here is to get to the root cause of an issue when there's an incident. So you want to make sure your dashboards are telling the users of your dashboard what they need to know in order to get to that root cause. So you want to make sure you get that deeper insight into the operations and the services that you plan on monitoring with your dashboards. Next, let's look at Dash Studio. Dash Studio is the more modern style of dashboarding within AppD. It simplifies a little bit and accelerate the creation of dashboards. It uses a lot of the same visualizations as the classic dashboard, but it has a couple of items in here that I really like, and those two it's mainly two, and that's being able to use variables and being able to do time comparison. Now I would say this that I didn't mention with classic. With a lot of the ADQL metrics, you're able to do the time comparison, but in Dash Studio, you're able to do it with ADQL along with the regular metrics out of the box metrics that come within Dynamics. So I'm going to go back over to my controller. I'm going Dash Studio, which you notice is the second tab, and I'm going to double click just to also show you. There is also a button here where you can only see your dashboard. So if it's a large group of dashboards and you want to filter out just the dashboards that you created, you can turn this on and it'll only show your dashboards. So I'm going to double click on this one. And the first thing I want to talk about is the variables, because I think the variables are real strong. If you notice up here, I have business transactions and it's set as a variable. I'm going to click on edit, and I'm going to just click on a white spot within the dashboard. And you'll notice down here it says dashboard variables. So here we're doing variables with business transactions. So I picked variable name. I named it business transactions. Type from the list. I chose business transactions, but you can see the other items you can choose. If you wanted to, you can create a dashboard and you can create it for applications and you can use it for a template for the application. So if you have multiple applications, you can just choose which applications you want to bring up within the dashboard. And all the items that's using that variable would change over to their application. So I'm using business transaction. I chose the applications. So you can see here, there's all the applications that's on this controller. And then from here, you choose which business transactions you want to show up in the variable. So if I choose these here, I chose 6, and those are the 6 that will automatically show up once within the graph once you use this variable. This business transaction 95 percentile is using the variable. So if I click on it, you'll notice for business transaction it'll have variables right here. And I can go up to the top. Let me get it out of view mode. I can go up to the top now. And if I choose different, I can uncheck. The check marks that you put in is just the default check marks, where it's going to automatically come up check. So if I'm unchecking and I want to check something down here, I'm able to do it. So the check marks when you create the variables is just the default that's going to show up when you bring the dashboard up, but you can still go in and you can choose any business transaction you want to see. I think this is very neat, especially if you want to make a template for applications where you can just go in and instead of having business transactions, you can have all your application listed and you can click on your application and then all of these metrics can then switch over to a different application. So if you create a template that, is an application type template, then you can use it for all the applications on your controller. So let's just look at add a regular template, a regular widget. So this is average response time widget. So I'm just going to click on it. I'm going to go back in edit mode, click here. And you see how with Dash Studio, it's more of a entry. You just enter in the fields and it brings in the metric. So here I can enter in these and it brings in the information for this query. So if I want to do applications, and then I pick the application type, the metric type, and then baselines. Of course, you always want to be able to add your baselines. So just so you can have a idea whether your metrics are working normal or not, that baseline. Then you can change your chart type. So right now it's lines. Like in the classic, you can change it to area. So you see here it changed to area view here. On the card over here, you have different things you can change, such as the background color. You can put a border around it. I usually like putting a shadow around the entire dashboard just to give it a little cosmetic look. You know, work with the cosmetics, make it look better. Your title, you can do your alignment, whether you want to make it left, center, to the right. Other visualizations are your colors, like before. You could change, like the first item that's coming into the metric will be blue. If I change that to purple, the next item would be purple, green, orange. So you have a range of colors that you can select and in the order that you want it to come in. So for instance, if I was to create a metric and the first item is the average response time, it will come in blue. If I add the baseline to it, which would be the straight line, then the baseline would be purple. And then if I go to another query, it'll come down here and I add another query, the next item would be green, orange, and so on. So you can definitely customize the color of the lines out of the area that coming into your metric graph. You can add thresholds. So just say you want static threshold, you're not using baselines, you just want to put some static threshold. Maybe you just have a CPU metric and you want to say 95%. I need a line to go across the metric for 95 to 95%. So you can add a threshold, you can add the color of red. Yeah, oh, let's do it this way. Add the color red and then change the value to 95. And now I have a line going through it for 95. So that's another thing you can do. You can add thresholds into your graphs. Another type of widget you can add as before, you can do the pictures. So, you want to add a logo into your graph. Within Dash Studio, there's multiple ways. You can do it the way we did it in Classic with the URL, image URL. But here you can also just do upload from computer and upload the file straight into the dashboard. Or if you have just a URL to an image, you can just add the URL to the image. So there's different ways you can do it within Dash Studio compared to Classic. Also, you can still add your iframes in. Down here, you can have the ability to do that frames and just click after you put the URL in, click embed, and your iframe will show up in your dashboard. Here is what we was talking about earlier, ADQL. But before I talk about ADQL, I'm just going to look at one of these metrics here because I really find this, I like this feature within Dash Studio where you can actually have a widget and you can turn on like time series over here to compare times. And now I can compare times from like last week, 1 hour, a minute, and now I can see the change, whether it was 10% up, 10% down. This one says 90% down. So that's being able to see that change and being able to see the red and green on your dashboard give you an instant view of whether something is out of range from what it are doing better than it was last week whenever you have the time range set for. You also have application load here. For instance, this one, you can also do a time setting for, or compare time settings for graphs. So if I do a time setting and I want to compare an hour, you notice that the a line came in showing the difference in the hour. But even if you're not even in edit mode, you in actual viewing, you just viewing your dashboard and you say, hey, I want to see what's going on from last week on this graph. I can actually click on this compare time range, it pops up on the side, and I could say time shift of 1 hour. And the 1 hour shift, you can't really tell because they're on top of each other, but the 1 hour shift shows within that graph. I think that's a good thing when you're troubleshooting and you want to measure how this application was performing or how many errors per minute was coming in the last hour compared to this hour. You can do it, or you can even go back how many errors was coming in last week compared to this week. So I think that's a good troubleshooting feature that can be used to help you solve problems fairly quickly, or at least detect problems when it happens. All right. Also within the edit dashboard, you also can share these dashboards too, just like we did with the classic dashboard. So your teammates can be able to use these dashboards. So I'm just going to go back here. I'm going to go back to Dash Studio S just to show the list down. I'm going to click one of the dashboards, and now you can see where I can share, or I can export, import. I can even duplicate the dashboard if necessary. If I'm going to use it as a template, I can duplicate it, change the items in the widgets to another application or another other business transactions, and continue to use it. So these are just some of the items that you can do within Dash Studio. You know, you can do the rinse and repeat, import, export to each controller. So you can have a way to, when this is a lower environment, move it over to the production environment and switch it over to the production application. But I just want to make focus, kind of make sure you understand the importance of the variable and the time series, because I think those are two important items when it comes down to either troubleshooting or just creating a dashboard and being able to add items into the dashboard by just clicking on the variable, add more business transactions, being able to compare business transactions on the same graph by choosing just those two business transactions to show up on the graph at the same time, so you can kind of compare how both of them reacts to each other. That's pretty much what I have for Dash Studio. I'm gonna go back over to my presentation now, and we're gonna look at reporting. So we're gonna look at the report types, the way to schedule a report, time ranges, and how to set up recipients. So first I'm gonna go through all the types of reports, and then we're actually gonna go back into the controller, and we're just gonna go through the process of actually setting up a report. So the first report type is the application health. It's give you the high level metrics coming out of your application. So in this one, we're doing an application health report for ADR application. And you can see that it shows you the transaction scorecard along with the business transaction server health. So it just gives you that high level view of your application. Next is the custom dashboard. The custom dashboard allows you to send out a picture of your custom dashboard on a time basis, so you don't have to log into it. You just receive an email with a view of your custom dashboards, and you can set this up on the schedule. So if you want this view to come in weekly, you can send a picture of your custom dashboard to your email weekly. And usually when I do a custom dashboard, I set those up to look more like a report than this one. So I usually use more of a grid view, kind of like a spreadsheet type view. So you can see those numbers come in. And the same thing with Studio dashboards or Dash Studio. You can set them up so they can look more like a report than a dashboard if you want to. And they'll come in the same way on the same type of schedule. All of these will use the same scheduling function. So controller audit, it actually comes in as a CSV, and it shows you what's going on your controllers, who's logging into your controller, who's making changes to your controller, who's deleting items on your controller. So you're able to do an audit and see that information. So the next one is home screen. It just gives you a picture of your home screen when you first log into AppDynamics, what you're using. So it just gives you that top level information of your home screen on a report. So application summary, just give you a report of all the applications reporting into your controller and those high level metrics that's coming in, such as overall response, average response time, calls per minute, and errors. User experience and browser apps just give you that user experience main page, and just you can have it sent in, like I said, on that same schedule. But as you see here, that's just a picture of the front screen of the user experience. This screen did remind me of something though that I did not mention. On the Dash Studio, you can integrate files and NAS into Dash Studio. So you can bring files and NAS metrics onto your Dash Studio dashboard. My closing thoughts for this one is, as I mentioned in the first session, we always want to think of a dashboard that less is more, that we're trying to tell a story and we need to build around the audience that we're trying to tell that story to. We need to understand that one dashboard cannot usually tell the full story, so we need to use those links and drill down so we can make sure that we tell that full story, and also be able to help get down to a root cause when there's an incident occurring. You utilize different widgets within your dashboard. You don't want your dashboard to be bland with just nothing but graphs. Let's try to utilize as different widgets, but we don't want to utilize different widgets and take away from the main cause, and that's to tell the story, to be able to find the issue. So what I usually do is, on my main high level dashboard is where you would see different widgets, a lot of different widgets. But when you start drilling down to look at services, a lot of time those dashboards would be more of, hey, here's a service, here's the underlying metrics that you want to see to troubleshoot, here's the next service. So I usually try to use most different widgets high level, and then when it start coming time to troubleshoot is when I'm kind of looking at more straightforward dashboards with metrics or health rules to so I can get that understanding of what's going on with the application when there's an incident. Label everything. You need to make sure that no matter whether it's a new user or old user, when they come to your dashboard, they know what they're looking at. So you have to have labels on them, and make sure that your user understand what they're looking at. You want to add baseline and threshold and standard deviations to your graph so you can understand when there is something not working as normal. So adding these baselines and thresholds gives you an idea where you can, when something's going wrong, by quickly viewing your dashboard and seeing something out of sorts. So if you see your baseline, your graph's well above your baseline, you know instantly that there's something going on. So those are my final thoughts, Chris. I'm going to hand it back over to you.
Hey, great job. No worries. Let's go ahead and go into the Q&A. All right, we didn't see any other questions come in. We did answer them along the way. So hopefully you guys are okay with those answers. If not, please let us know now. If we don't see any more coming in or anyone typing, let's go ahead and give you back your time. So these enablements are awesome. They're going to be public on our YouTube page, which will give you the link to that on the next slide. But we also encourage you always to check out what's going on the community pages, as well the Cisco U. The Cisco University has a lot of good information regarding certification and the tests that you would take so that you can get that badge under your name, and you can get let me just start over on this part.
Okay.
It's recorded. I'm going to be able to chop it up as however we want anyway. So moving on into the Cisco U, on top of the enablement that we provide, we try to let you guys follow along with us, almost like a lab or a quick enablement session. But to get real training where you're getting certification and taking that certification course or test so that you can actually get the little badge under your name, etc. Definitely check out the Cisco University. There's a lot of on-demand content as well, labs run by teachers that will, sit with you throughout the week and have you work on various things. Very awesome resource. And then in addition to that, definitely check us out on our YouTube page. It is the youtube.com and then at Cisco Observability. We are the Cisco Observability CSS team, the customer success specialists, and we specialize in the observability products that Cisco has, where we focus a lot on Splunk AppDynamics on these. The topics are going to be expanding. They are driven by your guys' feedback, not only in how we can make our delivery better, but also the content that you guys most want to see, or that it might be harder to find good content out there for currently. So please check us out there. Provide any sort of feedback you might have, and stay tuned for the next episode. Thank you all for joining today. These sessions are only a success because you guys are joining, because you guys are engaging, giving us feedback. Calvin, awesome presentation. Thank you so much for teaching us so much about the dashboarding, and Bill for answering the questions along the way that we had. And I'll see you all next time.